We have all encountered people in our lives that we just wish were different, right? The way they talk to us, the way they think, act, live, or behave. And then we wish to just change them in some ways. I know I have, and probably you have too, which is why you might have clicked on this video. But a potentially tough pill to swallow for a lot of people is that we can't change anybody else. No matter how close they are to us, no matter how special they are to us, how much we love them or care for them, we still can't change them. And it is not in our control or power to change anybody else but ourselves. Because the truth is, people only change when they want to change, not when we tell them to change and not when we want them to change. And I'll tell you an example. A few years ago, I knew this person and they had a really bad habit of smoking. So they would be like smoking cigarettes every day and like it was their habit. And their family was really concerned for them. And the family was like, you need to stop smoking. It's really bad for your health. You need to stop smoking. Like, you need to change your habit. But this person wouldn't stop. Even after their family wanted them to change and the family was helping them to change, they still didn't stop. They kept going. But then one day, all of a sudden, we don't exactly know why, but this person stopped smoking. And the thing is, this person stopped ultimately because they wanted to. Because they were finally like, oh, I need to stop, like this is bad for my health, and something must have clicked in their brain to finally like, be like, oh, like this is bad for my health, like I need to stop. So ultimately, this person only stopped when they wanted to stop, not even when their loving family was like, you need to stop, like people around them were telling them. This person only stopped because they wanted to, because they finally wanted to change. That's why a lot of times we want, people around us to change, especially with close friends and family members. We want them to change in ways like, and when they don't want to change and when they don't listen to us, then we can think like, oh, but like, why wouldn't they listen to us? I just want the best for them. I want them to be better. That's my mom, that's my sister, that's my best friend. I just want the best for them. But it's also asking the question of, does this person, whoever it is that you're trying to change or you're wanting to change, does this person want to be better? Does this person want the best for themselves? Because you could want it, sure, but until they themselves don't want it for themselves, then they're not going to change for the better, or they're not going to change at all. Because that person themselves have to realize like, oh, I want to live differently, I want to live better, I deserve better. Because if they're not thinking like that, and if they're not thinking that oh, what I'm doing right now, like this is wrong, or I can do better, or whatever it is, then they won't change. No matter how much you advise them, no matter how much you tell them, they won't change unless in their own brain they realize like, okay, I can do better than this, and this is not working, let me try something else. Because once they realize that they want to change, that's when they will change. Like, I have friends too, for example, that I just wish I could change the way they see themselves, or the way they treat themselves, or the way they think about themselves. But I realize that I can't do it for them. But I do try to influence them to change or inspire them to change. Like, for example, I share with them the self-help books that I've read that have helped me to change. Or I share with them like videos and like advice of mine, or TikToks, etc. But I do still realize that like I can only inspire them and I can only influence them to change, but I can't do the changing for them, and I can't, like I can only help them, but I can't change their mindset for them. Like, you can take the horse to the water, but you can't make it drink, because the horse has to drink, like that has to do the drinking themselves. In that same way, that person, you can help them to change, you can, prompt them to change, but they have to do the changing themselves. Also, it's important to realize that everyone is experiencing things and learning lessons on their own different timelines and at different paces. So you could have learned or grasped a concept and, learned a lesson that life was trying to teach you and moved on, much quicker than, for example, someone close to you, someone else that a friend, a family member, or someone even older than you. They could still be struggling and, with those same lessons that you have learned and moved on from ages ago. Or they could still be learning these lessons that you have learned, like, already. And, you might wonder why is that the case? And the thing is, that person isn't you. Like, everyone is going through, different things at different times and learning, like, having different experiences and learning things at different, like, times in their lives, So basically, keeping in mind that, just because you've learned a lesson or I've learned a lesson that about something that life has taught us doesn't mean that everyone else may have learned it, or they might still be learning it. So it's keeping your mind open to the fact that people are still learning and still experiencing things, and it happens at different timelines and at different paces, so giving them like grace and compassion for that as well. And if you are someone that just wishes for other people to change, or has been wanting to change someone, or change in general, like change others around you, then it's also important to realize, and especially if the people that you're trying to change don't listen to you and like aren't taking your advice and things, then it's important that you redirect that energy towards yourself. So instead of trying to change other people who clearly aren't listening and not taking your advice, for example, redirecting that change within yourself. So changing yourself for the better, putting that energy into yourself, where you're caring about yourself enough to change yourself for the better and change your life for the better. Because changing yourself is within your control, and trying to change other people is not within our control, as I've said already. So redirecting, changing, and that feeling of wanting to change someone else, redirecting it to yourself and changing yourself instead for the better. And another thing is, people who don't feel in control of their own lives and of their selves, like, if you don't feel in control of yourself or don't feel in control of your life, then those people also have a greater tendency to try and change other people and try to like take control of other people's lives. Like, it doesn't even have to be like in a negative way. Sometimes it's just because our life feels like a mess, or because we feel like a mess, so we try to like take control of other people's lives, or try to change other people's lives and try to change them. So, and I remember that I used to feel that way as well in the past, when I didn't really feel like in charge of my own life and in charge of myself. I would just desperately wish for other people to change, other people around me, or I would wish for them to change their lives, because like my life was a bit of a mess and I wasn't really in charge of my life. And this is before like I took charge of my life. So that is also something to keep in mind. Also, you can like indirectly inspire and influence other people to change, because for example, especially the people around you, like your friends, family members, when they see you, for example, living your life the way that you want and doing whatever you want and like doing the best for yourself and changing and improving yourself for the better, then in many ways you are inspiring them as well. Because when you see other people, for example, doing the things that they want, for example, or when they see other people living their lives, then they are also getting inspired and influenced. So you can also indirectly do that to help other people change as well around you. Like, for example, when my friends see me respecting myself, or taking care of myself and putting myself out there and doing the things that I want, they also get inspired by me. Like, I know, and like also when I give them advice and stuff, like they get inspired by me. Like, one of my friends recently was saying that some advice that I gave her really helped her make a decision in her life that she wanted to make, and that the advice that I give them also helps them in a lot of ways. So, and like it happens, like indirectly people get really inspired and influenced by people. So like, there's also a famous quote that goes like, if you want the world to change, then start by changing yourself first. So it's just like that. So thank you so much for watching this video. Tell me in the comments down below, like, what did you learn from this video and what are your thoughts on this topic? And check out my TikTok as well. I will drop it down in the description. I make shorter form content similar to this, so go check that out as well. And I'll see you all in my next video very, very soon. Mwah.